So I'm Chava Peribán. Welcome to Heritage Mezcal, and today I am with Megs. I don't even know your real name. I don't know if it's Megan. Yes, can you introduce yourself, please, Megs?
Yeah, most people know me as Megs Miller, but my whole real name is Megan Elizabeth du Millenare.
Oh, that's very classy. I love it.
I think I'm probably butchering my last name still. I grew up in Canada and nobody in Canada had my last name, and it's a Belgian last name. It's Flemish.
Okay.
And when I've been in Belgium, they keep trying to teach me how to say it. So I think I even say my last name wrong.
But I mean, if you want to talk about a language that I find incredibly mysterious, it's Flemish.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Even when you see the UN little cabins when they're translating Flemish, yes. I'm like, who the hell are these people? And how do they do it?
It was when I first brought my parents there and we found like long lost cousins from my dad, and we seen our name on buildings and stuff. And I was like, oh, cool. But it means of the Miller. Okay. So growing up, when my mom went from being Reina, which I could have had Reina as my second last name, but my mom went from being Reina to du Millenare, she would just be like Miller. So it was just a little joke in the family.
Well, it's not terribly tragic, but but anyways, you're from Canada originally,
yes,
and you've been in many places. But right now we are in your Salon de Agave, which we probably can take a picture of that. There's a beautiful sign that you have here.
Gracias.
And this is a little temple dedicated to all things agave spirits, right?
Yeah, so I've been working in agave spirits for over 12 years now, but I made the move about 4 years ago to Mexico. And I think the Salon de Agave kind of stumbled across into my lap in a way of it was what I was looking for. I wanted a place to find all different products across Mexico. And it just kind of naturally happened in my friend's kitchen. And then it's like, you need a room. And I was like, I think I need a room.
So you were doing tastings in your friend's kitchen.
Yeah,
and
basically.
I love it.
She always had parties, and she was the host with the most, and she still is the host of the most. And she always had random people, and she had a big cabinet of agave. And I lived with her at the time, so there was extra agave from me. And every time I had people over, she's like, can you do that thing you do talking about agave in the kitchen? And then I would stand there and talk to people. And then people actually booked tastings in her house with me. And then it was like, oh, hey, maybe we should actually just do this.
That's amazing.
So it just naturally happened.
That's super cool. And I think that, I love the selection you have here because we've talked about this.
Yes.
And I really think that a lot of people come to Mexico City, they expect that they're going to find like 25, 30 different spaces where they can try the most obscure things. I think you called it the Disneyland of agave.
Exactly.
And it's not necessarily the case. And I'm very excited about projects like yours that try to have a very specific mindset and viewpoint about the curatorship of spirits they bring in.
Thank you so much.
And no, it's not a compliment. It's just like reality. It's just reality. It's a fact.
Well, I think, yeah, exactly. That was kind of like the quick TED Talk is that, or not TED Talk, the elevator pitch. TED Talk's not elevator pitch was that, most people, you only find tequilas from Jalisco or mezcals from Oaxaca, but 30 of the 32 states that we know of right now are producing agave spirits and sotols. So if you come to the biggest city in North America, and it's located in Mexico, and one of the oldest cities in the world, and you can't find these gorgeous small Mexican-owned brands, I was like, if I want it, I'm sure other people are looking for it too.
And I think that's the greatest approach. You make what you would love, that will be serving you in a perfect world. And I think like the one thing that I really want to talk to you about, and this is something that I've been thinking so much lately, there's all these places that we have the chance to go in Mexico because we are interested in agave spirits. And these are places that are not necessarily the most touristic. They are not known for a lot of good reasons sometimes. So even if when you say like, well, I was in Durango, and people are like, what is your line of business? and you have to explain that.
Where you're from in Michoacan, I've visited many times, and it was like, why do you in Michoacan? I was like, because the mezcals in Michoacan are so delicious.
And why are you going to Etucuaro, or why are you going to Rio de Parras within Michoacan, right? Like it's just like all of these places I think are beautiful, but beautiful. Absent spirits probably wouldn't reach them. And I think one of my latest traits that I'm still obsessed about is Chihuahua.
Me too.
Isn't it amazing? Like,
me too.
And I really don't know that many people that have been to Chihuahua. And when I came back from there, I just wanted to ask anybody around me, like, have you been to Chihuahua?
And wanted to go back right away,
yes.
Right? Like, it was as soon, because what we do here at Salon, we work, right now with trying to work with all 30 states that are producing agave spirits. We have rotating selections that change a lot, so we can keep learning and having I never believed that this was going to be a repeat customer business, but people come back over and over again, which is so exciting. So we always
really. So you have people that are like, I've done all your tasting. I've heard to everything you guys got to say. I just got the tip of the iceberg. I want the full iceberg.
We have regulars. We have regulars, especially beautiful regulars that live here in Mexico City and bring people that are traveling, or they just come back and bring their friends. And I mean, I've got one person that's come 8 times, and I just. Wow, thank you.
Do you have like special batches that are hidden just for these people? They're like, oh, it's your 8th time. This is just like for you because you've broken the record.
There might be some hidden bottles, and especially those like from the most recent trips that are like haven't even got them out of the plastic Coca-Cola bottle yet to decant into something. So yeah, we always try to share. And I think when we do find really, really special products, it's always about sharing them, because as you would feel the same, when you find something special and rare, it's the best is to be shared, not to be kept.
That's why I walked in here with a bunch of camera equipment and a few bottles to share.
I always love our meetings. I always love our meetings.
Well, and again, like I just think it's a bizarre thing now, because we work in this thing that it's very ubiquitous in people's lives, which is spirits and alcohol, but at the same time, it's something that not a lot of people talk I don't know, like I guess in an organized, more nerdy way. So it's something, it's counterintuitive, so present yet so hard to talk about it.
And what's the most fun thing to be so nerdy about? Like our life, like it just makes you happy. It's this plant that soaks up literally all the energy from the soil and from the sun for so many years. It just gives you all this energy from both of those things. So what's the best thing we could be nerdy about?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, maybe esquites, like maybe I would love to be an esquite expert. Maybe maybe that is my next area of work. No, like, just fantasizing here. But anyways, like, I think that I came back from Chihuahua this last time, I'm almost sure like a month ago, and I'm still sort of recovering physically and emotionally from such trips. So, I mean, if you allow me to talk, I'm going to talk forever, but I would love to hear like your experience reaching Chihuahua, because we're not from there. For us, like an extremely alien, foreign land. And I'm just very curious to hear.
The land kind of looks like that in some places, right? Some regions. We were very lucky. I've been, as Mexico is so big, and I'm trying to visit as many producers as we can to tell their stories the best we can in Salon. But Chihuahua is obviously a very big state. So our first trip there, we were very lucky to visit 5 producers in 4 or 5 days.
Oh, wow.
And we went from the city to the desert, Desierto, to Chorreas, to Madera. We drove quite a lot and hit quite a few different producers.
You did the whole like mountain to the desert, passing through the city. Wow.
And I mean, like Chorreas was this oasis in the middle of the desert that was just like
okay. No, we have to talk about that. No, absolutely.
So to back up, like as I was saying, like we try to visit as many states and producers, but we had to go back to Chihuahua again this year because it was just so exciting. We came back. When he said you needed to recover emotionally, I was like, maybe we just didn't recover emotionally. We had to go back again. It was too exciting.
And I think like I love that you just mentioned the oasis in Chorreras, because and just for people to have a little bit of a picture of what Chihuahua means, it's a massive state. And it's a massive state that has, at least for our area of study, which is spirits, I think a lot of people divide it between like the mountain stuff and the desert stuff. So it's super interesting because you get sotol, that it's willery, and then you have like, I always mispronounce that. Roy, you're going to help me with that. Lifolium, how do you pronounce it?
Leophilium.
Leophilium?
Okay. I think.
I think it's close enough. My Latin is not great, so.
I was like, and this is it. Like we're still learning so much about sotols and daisy on plants. So my knowledge right now is that there's 23 species currently found in Mexico that I know of. Where my knowledge is at right now, me and Sophie talk about this a lot, is that every month, every day we learn something new, and all of these facts are going to keep changing as people keep taking seeds and hybrids and we learn more. All wine in the entire world comes from one species of grape.
Yeah.
Think of how educated wine is. It's the same species. We have over 200 species of agave. Then they have different varietals and subvarietals. And daisy later on, sotol plants, like we've got these 23 species that we currently know of, but the hybrids and everything that's happened. So,
No. Like you're making my mind spin, because another thing that I think is extremely exciting in this area of Chihuahua is still very unknown.
Yes.
Like, I mean, as I'm saying, like, it's not only the city, but even the products coming from Chihuahua. It's not something that has an immense market.
Exactly.
It's still not part of the most desired products. You know, like you talk to anybody that it's sort of a mezcal enthusiast and you say Santa Catarina Minas, clay distillation.
People that know, they have an idea of this. Yeah,
Everybody
exactly.
agrees that's desired.
Exactly. And I mean, when we talk about lechuguillas from this region as well. So lechuguillas is an agave coming from a sotol producer,
Yes.
or an agave from northern Mexico, maybe in Sonora and other states, but very confusing because there is a species of agave called agave lechuguilla. But usually
And sometimes it's an ensemble of bicornuta with other stuff.
or
And it's
lechuguilla could just be more agave, but still have some sotol in it, right? So it's like these hybrids, these blends, and it's just, we'll never stop learning. It's so exciting.
And I think like what it's also super exciting is these people, I mean, and by these people, I mean like a lot of the traditional producers of the area. And I think I saw this phenomena happening in Oaxaca back in the day. You know, there's a lot of risks that they usually wouldn't be able to take because it was so cheap and they couldn't charge what it really means.
They were nomads. It was illegal until 1994, which is wild. 1994, these producers would have to be nomads. And I didn't have the chance to meet her this time around, but I met Benvenido, and my beautiful girl Sophie met his daughter, and she was like, until I was 10 years old, we were living as nomads. You know, we have to travel, and if they are caught by the police, all the sotol got dumped. But they still kept to their craft to keep these traditions alive, which is wild. So if you see a bottle of Benvenido, please drink it with a lot of respect, because he's an amazing, amazing producer, and he's from Madera, and beautiful pine notes from that forest, and one of my favorite sotol producers for sure.
And it's super interesting to go into his distillery, or his
house. Yes. Sorry if you don't mind me.
No, please.
That was the biggest realization when we visited some of these sotol producers. Like Chorreyes is just this oasis in the middle of the desert, which you can understand why nobody found them. But for Benvenido, living in the city of Madera, you know, when you visit a Viñata, Palenque, or something like this is what makes agave spirit so special compared to other products in the world. And I think I actually listened to this from your podcast. Was that the fact that it's it's part of the environment. It's part of the landscape. Other spirits are closed buildings, right? They're closed distilleries, and where agave, but sotol couldn't be that. Sotol in like certain places couldn't be that. So driving up to somebody's house in a city, and I was like, wait, what? Of course, because they had to hide for so long. So it was wild going to this tiny little producer's backyard where he made his sotol. And I was like, whoa, like that was just the different level of knowledge and learning about that was just, you know, it broke my heart, but also it was so inspiring that they kept it going for so long.
And it's also so fascinating to think about. I mean, like, again, like I went to the Museum of Chihuahua, and I started to see a lot of how people were just really good at hiding in the mountains. There's a bunch of people that have a lot of tradition. Yeah. Like I was talking with Lupe Lopez, which is another marvelous producer there.
It's amazing.
And we're having like this, I think it's a contentious theme these days. It's like, you know, do you have permits to harvest the sotol? And he was like, if you send me any person that is willing to go where I'm getting this sotol from, I'll be very happy to be checked. But I don't think anybody's going to go deep into the mountains where I'm bringing this stuff. So these are people that have been dealing or have been living and extracting flavors of these places that are very inhospitable, and they're very still living like in the last century, which is freaking amazing.
Exactly. And then we look at the age of the plants on top of it.
Oh, well, that's another crazy thing. Yeah.
I mean, because with agaves, an agave could grow to like 80, 100 years from my knowledge, but for agave distillates, we're sitting around 5 to 40. But with Daisy Lerons or sotol plants, we're looking at 80 to 100 years up in the mountains. Apparently for me, where I know right now is the sugar content, you need like 12 to 15 years growing. But I mean, last time we were talking to Chava.
Okay, but you have to mention the bottle, please. And we can serve a little bit.
Salvatore, Chava for Chava. And this is the bottle from Chorreyes. Now, my first time visiting there, this was hilarious. They were very beautiful, invited us out to their viñata. And on the morning of the day, look, we were 15 minutes late.
Okay.
But
that's a
15
crime
minutes late,
in Mexico. That's
15
a crime.
Minutes, but they also told us wait an extra hour. So then we're 15 minutes late after the hour. But in a small place in Mexico, that's technically early.
Yeah.
But they forgot us. Not the producer, not Chava or Lalo, but the group forgot us. And so we are stuck in in the town and in Aldama with no way to get out there. So my beautiful friend Rodrigo borrowed an SUV from a friend and we start driving. But within the first hour, we get a flat tire. And I start laughing. And they're like, Megs, this is, oh no. First flat tire, we're like, oh, everything's okay. But an hour into a 4-hour drive. So then we get the second flat tire, still about 10 kilometers out of the town. And I start laughing and they're like, this isn't funny. I'm like, well, what are you going to do? I was like, I've been on a lot of agave trips where things go wrong and you can't control it.
And people have to understand that this is the definition of middle of nowhere.
Middle of nowhere. No phone service. Obviously no phone service.
You're saying, I mean, it's beautiful, but
it's middle of nowhere. And I mean, actually so my beautiful friend Rodrigo, he started walking because he's like, I've got he's like, I've got to go. What are we going to do? We have no service or anything. So he starts walking. We're hanging out for about 2 hours. I'm like, well, I'll take some photos and stuff. And like scorpions, snakes. I'm like, I'm fine with those. But when my friend Michelle, she's like, yeah, but we're in the ditch of two hills. And she's like, there's pumas in the area. I was like, oh, I'll get back in the car.
The pumas. The pumas are.
I was like, I'm Canadian. I know bears. I don't know pumas. I was like, I'll get back in the car.
Oh, Lord.
And then some people that were driving to the Vignetta from the area found us. And so we split in between these two very amazing like little cars and got there. And we get out of the cars and Lalo looks at me like, oh shit. I was like, yeah, oh shit. Like, are you, sorry for swearing.
No, it's fine.
And I was like, were you coming back to get us? And I think he was already a little happy on Sotol. So he was like, anyways, long story short, they gave us some puntas right away.
Oh yeah.
And
generosity at its best.
Yeah, some puntas and other puntas. And we ended up it's one of me and Sophie's favorite days ever.
Love that.
But yeah, so Torreyes from Pena Blanca is located in this oasis in the desert. Like when I say desert, like think of like the sand is so soft and white that it's like powder. It coats your hand and coats everything.
Like chalky.
Yes, chalky. It's white and it coats everything. But when that was blowing in our faces, like it tastes like this sotol. When we drank the water from the spring, it tastes like this sotol. So like we always like to describe when we're doing tastings in Salon de Agave is like the first thing to look for first when you're tasting any spirits is think about tasting the earth, right? So when we say that, but then when you get to visit these places, they're like, it just tastes of Torreyes. Like we can't even describe this anymore because we visited there first and it was like, it just tastes of Torreyes. But they were serving ceviche from the lake that's there.
Isn't that crazy? You just drove through a desert and suddenly there's fish.
Yeah. So I was like, do I want to eat fish here? But then you see them like fishing in this lake and I'm like, oh, this is so cool.
And that's like, honestly, for me, I mean, we started drinking before we started recording.
I was like, I'm sorry, I got a little excited. Sotol, Sotol gives you energy.
Yes.
Sotol's very
Señorita, fundamental pleasure. Yeah, no, it's so interesting because it's an incredibly unique place to be at. And I cannot think from the top of my head any other Sotol or agave production space that looks like that.
No, it was amazing to be at.
And this flavor profile, these aromas are like so connected to it. Absolutely. Yeah.
I really love pairing music with sipping agave and sotol products. And I always think that in my head, like driving through that desert and in those areas, I'm like, this is a Quentin Tarantino soundtrack.
Oh, wow.
Like very Dusk Till Dawn, Salma Hayek's foot kind of thing. But I think it's just like, it's got that kind of like you're in an old car driving through the desert, the tumbleweeds are going through and it's just like that dry dust is like in your mouth, but then it's still sweet and it's got this there's always like, even though this is not from anywhere near the forest, there's always like a slight little pine note for me anyways, or a menthol or minty, like chiclet, like a minty chiclet on the finish.
And that is like so interesting to me because I think a lot of people will describe sotol flavor normally as like musty. Mm-hmm. Like I think a lot of the sotol that you can find in the market these days has like musty, like a barn kind of, just flavors. And this one is so fresh. It's so vibrant.
It's so like bright. And that, I think that was, so we've been doing some experiments where we only try to stick to a species per month.
Please tell about this. I think that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. I mean,
if you think about, so agave spirits and sotols have these essential oils inside of them. And if we think about other essential oils and other things in the world, like whether they're lavender and chamomile and things that can help you like relax, or if you're into things like marijuana, we know they have these terpenes in them as well. So different oils, these different essential oils affect different people in different ways. Coming from a plant that's taking so long to grow, if you visit these small producers, they all have ideas of how these products affect our bodies. So we started research last year that we only stick to a single species for the entire month. No beer, no wine, no cocktails, only that single species.
No vodka?
No vodka.
No.
And it's super exciting. So the very first month that we started on sotol, I'm not going to lie, like before we started the whole month on sotol, it wasn't my go-to in a bar or at nighttime when I was out with friends. Sotol wasn't my go-to thing, and neither for my beautiful girl, Sophie.
Who's standing here?
Yes,
like,
Sophie's in
you've
the
been
room.
referring to her, so we have to say, Sophia
and it was
here.
like, Sophie even had a joke being like, this is a desert plant. It's like, it withstands very tough like environments, right? So we kind of were like, oh, might be a tough month. Like Sophie's joke was like, am I going to grow a mustache? But now, after spending the entire month dedicated to the species and dedicated to it, it's now one of our favorite things. We are obsessed with sotol. It flavor profile wise, it's very energetic. Like the feeling on sotol, like our joke is that it lowers inhibitions. So we do have a saying.
If you're listening to this and you want to,
we do have a joke saying like, sotol made me do it.
Love it.
But there's like no feeling of anything bad the next day. You know, that anxiety, there's none of that. But just sipping like a little bit.
So
like,
all the right mistakes.
All the right mistakes. And it's very energetic and it's really fun. And then now if you meet people that drink sotol or sotoleros, they make sense as people. Like they're just fun, energetic. They just want everyone to be a party. And that's Chihuahua, you know?
And I think like that's so important to remember, because sometimes, and maybe I've said this before, but I think sometimes like this environment of, you know, like respecting the culture, respecting the environment, respecting everything that it's condensed in these drinks, sometimes feels too solemn. And I believe that it's important to remember that in the end, it can be both things.
This is it. I mean, drinking and imbibing should always be fun. And when you meet all of these producers who make these products, they want you to really enjoy their product. And I mean, I think that's just Mexico. I think that says a lot about your country, you know? For me, if I had to put the entire country into one word, for me, Mexico is color. You know, from the people to the food, to the agave, to the sotol, to the landscape, to the textiles, to the artwork, everything in Mexico is so full of color.
Yes.
And it's to be enjoyed. You know, there's an old quote about London. It says, if you're bored of London, you're bored of life. And I believe it's more about Mexico.
That's lovely. No, and I think I've said this many times, like wine is used to crown kings. And mezcal and sotol is to make a mess.
But like the saying of like, for everything good mezcal, for everything bad mezcal, it's like it is, or, you know, and sotol, it is just, it invites everyone into the party,
yes,
you know,
absolutely.
much like Mexicans do.
And I think like another thing that really caught my attention in Chihuahua, and just because like I have all these like memories connected to it, to be honest, I arrived to the city and I didn't expect much of it. You know, it doesn't have the best reputation in our country, Chihuahua City.
I guess I didn't know much about it before I went. I just kind of...
I had such a blast.
So much fun.
I had like...
Amazing bars, amazing hospitality, great food. Oh my God, I'm still dreaming of all the quesos from there, all the cheese.
All the quesos. I have not had the quesos. Were they really good?
Oh my God. So like, came back a little bit heavier after that trip, but
because I just ended up going to a lot of these traditional cantinas, and one of my favorite memories is this lady boss.
The oldest cantina there. I can't remember the name of it right now. But
there are a few. We went to some that were not super clean, which was great. But I remember like my friend says that I'm talking about you. He spilled the beer. And the lady came to us and looked at us like, ay, criaturas. Which I was like, it's the most endearing thing somebody have told me. Like, you little creature, don't you worry about it. We're expecting the worst out of you. So that was, I just felt so loved. And it was just like everything about the city.
Yeah, it was so welcoming, so open, just all hospitality. And then, now like, we just always want sotol. Like we want to learn more. Cause that month we only did Days of Liri. So now we're going to have to try another species for the whole month and see. So.
And they're so drastically distinct. And now I think that like I even got some like apple brandy.
There's loads of orchards. So many orchards. I was like, I want somebody to make a Mexican cider from Chihuahua.
Yeah, I mean, like fermentation and myself, we're not like super good friends. I'm more of a distilled. Yeah, but I tried a sample of the apple brand and like, wow, this is interesting. It still needs a little bit of love maybe, but I think there's a lot of potential there. And again, like, I think that for me was a big part of the lesson of the trip going to Chihuahua. Like, you can still feel how the imagination of these producers, the landscape, like
everything they had to go through, like, to still stay alive. And now now we can finally, like, you know, being illegal since 1994, like, let's give the love. They finally get to be not hidden and not running away and hiding. So, like, have a sotol, support them, enjoy it, learn more about this gorgeous liquid.
And I feel like for a lot of makers of spirits in this country, this transition of being bandits, because that's how they were, to now be national heritage.
Yeah.
It's so lovely to see that, because before,
they're such beautiful people.
They're the coolest.
They're so sweet.
I don't want to ask that, but I should ask that. Do you have a favorite thing that you try there?
Oh, like producer or?
Yeah, or just spirit that you try that you're like, oh Lord, that just like, I mean, what we're drinking right now for me
That's
just
so delicious.
completely redefined the way I understand sotol and the flavor profile, because I'm a huge cenizo enthusiast and love the Durango sotol. But this one, I was like, I just didn't know that sotol is cool inhabit this space.
It's always really tough because I, of course, here in Salon, almost every single day, someone goes, "What's your favorite?" And I was like, the one in my glass.
Oh, am I so predictable? I'm the worst. Like, yeah, that's why I didn't want to.
No, but I mean, because we have a lot of bottles here. We work with a lot of producers, and so I always my cheeky joke is like the one that's in my glass.
Yeah, I mean, that's an accurate answer.
I mean, the guys from like Lupe, as you mentioned, and Benvenido. But I mean, Chava's great, but I've yet to meet a sotol that I haven't really, well, actually, no, that's a lie. I was like, I haven't met to meet a sotol that I didn't like. When we were last in Chihuahua, we found some like products that were trying to be like a Cristalino sotol. That one was a tough one for me.
That should be talked about. Like, I mean, I love Chihuahua City and I loved a lot of what I tried, but I also tried like 65 things that were horrifying.
Yeah, and like I never like to talk bad about brands or things like that because everyone's trying to make a living or try to do something new and that's their style. But I'm not, and for very obvious reasons, like I'm an educator. We do education about these products and try to represent them the best. So Cristalino products are not something that I'm very excited about. So seeing a Cristalino sotol I was like, oh no.
but I think it's important to talk about the fact that, of course, a lot of these people are trying to bring the urban kids into the sotol game.
And maybe it's just not for me. Right?
Yeah, no. And I just think that they're trying to imagine what is somebody from the city drinking, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like sort of a miscommunication sometimes, I think, that the producer is like completely underestimating the city kid and they're giving them what they think they want, but the city kid is not getting what they really want. So I think that there should definitely, I think education, that's a big part of this, right? Like to be able to tell both parties that, hey, what you think is beautiful can be appreciated in the city, and there's a place for that. And sometimes I think these people, because they live in places are really hard to access, and they don't necessarily have conversations with people like us all the time. They sometimes can forget that.
Yeah.
And anyways, because that really caught my attention, that a lot of the more contemporary products that you could find locally, they were like, this could be so much better.
And like people that are, because there was a conversation when we were last there about the sotoleros that have been making the liquid for such a long time to a new sotolera or sotoleras that were new in the business but wanted to learn from, and then maybe not getting the respect because they don't have so many years making the product. But why not go and learn and be able to make something, right? So I think it's very, very beautiful to see people try, like learning and expanding the category. And then of course, yeah, exactly. There's going to be ones that do it really amazingly. And then there's going to be ones that are like, oh, I wish everyone well, obviously. But I think it'll be very interesting to watch the category grow and see how it's going to change and adapt now that they can be out of
they can be
out in the open,
and they can receive the credit that they deserve.
And if you have the chance to go to Chihuahua, please reach out to one of us, and we'll hook you up with some visits to these amazing producers because there's such sweet people that we hope everyone can meet.
No, absolutely. And I feel like I tried such great things. Even the architecture of the city was so cool. The market, the menudos, just like, it was like really, really great. And it was a great surprise for me. So I'm so happy you like Chihuahua, señorita.
Gracias.
And
Salud.
saludcita. It's a pleasure recording
Gracias.
with you.
Thank you so much for having me, Chava.
It is nothing but my pleasure, really.
Cheers.
See ya. Adiosito. Second one out. Love it. This is a terrible day for me not drinking. Like, what the fuck? This episode was recorded at Salon de Agave in Mexico City, a tasting room where Megs and Sofia shared their love and expertise around agave and Basilidian spirits. If you are visiting Distrito Federal, aka Mexico City, for a few days, I very much recommend scheduling a tasting. The curatorship is impeccable, and they always have some cheeky surprises for the most intense of nerds. Enjoy your spirits y nos vemos al rato.